Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the last week of What If Dyslexia Was Easy campaign. Very grateful to have you all with us. For anyone that is joining that's new, just a reminder that Dyslexia in Adults 5 minutes past is on time. So I am actually early. So in case anyone was wondering why our presentation is a little bit late to kick off. Okay, right, I'm gonna get started and then people can drip in. So we've got some slides today on kind of what is confidence, what is the challenges coming from, and some strategies. And then we can also dive into some questions as well. And I'm also gonna give a quick overview on how to like what's gonna be going on with the space after this and what your options are and all of that kind of thing as well, if you do decide that you've enjoyed this month. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit about where some of the confidence challenges come from, specifically with dyslexia, examples of what low confidence often looks like, so you can kind of realize the bad habits that you're making, because often identifying them and seeing them can be a big part of shifting that change. And then tips, mindset shifts, strategies to create that change. And we've got 8 as well, so lots of kind of bits and pieces to go through. Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk a little bit first about like some of the things that we find happened, the cycle that we find people get into. Oh, I'm just gonna pop someone on mute. Okay. All right. So understanding the strengths. The reality is that for most people, we really struggle to understand exactly what a lot of the dyslexic strengths are and what exactly is going on, leaving you only with the challenges, and feeling really frustrated about the reality of being dyslexic. So in terms of why you might struggle, firstly, there's the negative perceptions that we have of ourselves. So often because we've been told lots of times that we're a problem, or that the way that we learn has resulted in challenges or maybe past mistakes you've made. I've had my probation extended, I've been fired, I haven't got the grades that I wanted, I missed my university pace that I wanted to go to. I've had so many negative experiences. I lost one company over £5,000. I have experienced a wide range of challenges due to dyslexia. And so often, of course, we end up feeling like we have a huge negative perception of dyslexia and like how we feel about being dyslexic. It also, one of the phrases that we love to use is this term called death by 1,000 paper cuts. This constant of like, there's a constant erosion and breaking down of how we feel and what exactly is going on through these constant feedbacks, negative situations, frustrations that happen that can often end up chipping away at your confidence. It's not one thing, it's thousands and thousands of little things. So what does that impact look like? One of the things that we see over and over again, and like I said, it's really important to kind of call a lot of these things out to really help people understand and make sense of what is going on, is the little jokes. Like, oh yeah, my brain is like a sieve, or I'm not a real blonde, but like there's blonde in there. Or God, I'm so disorganized, I couldn't organize a piss up in a brewery. Or I even found myself getting so embarrassed the other day when I was organizing my best friend's hen do, is I was like, God, I can't believe you let the most disorganized person in the group organize your hen do. And it's just like little ways of us to let out our frustration or embarrassment, or try and kind of take control of the narrative to put out this situation where like you are kind of highlighting the situation, where like taking control of it. And honestly, it doesn't work, but it feels better in the moment. It's like a comfy blanket, hating yourself. Then there's also the fear of being like called out, the fear of being found out, the fear of like being seen as a failure. Often many neurodiverse people keep ourselves small, keep ourselves kind of like below the surface, because we don't want to put our hands up, highlight things, keep like kind of keep above the water so that we don't have to put ourselves in a situation that could result in people realizing the reality of how we're feeling. Now, many people call this imposter syndrome, but I think for me, when I think about neurodiversity, it's one of those things where I'm so terrified that people will realize that it was a complete fluke that I got the job. That, like, I remember when I got the job at Amazon, and even though I went around 7 rounds of interviews, my biggest fear was, oh my God, what if someone realizes that I'm not meant to be here? I'm not good enough to work here. And so you kind of keep yourself under the radar to try and help, like to try and make sure that no one will ever find out. Also, a lot of neurodiverse people really talk about the loneliness and the frustration of it being just you who is struggling. So it is like you feel like you're the only one who is dyslexic and you're the only one who is taking things longer because you kept it to yourself. And often you have never truly expressed the reality of your experience. I often have my one-on-one coaching clients, and they often start talking to me about their experience and what has gone on. And they often start crying when they start talking about it. And I remind them that they've probably never had a conversation as honest and as open as the one that they're having with me, because to truly admit how much you're struggling is really hard and really embarrassing. And so we often keep it to ourselves, meaning it can be quite a lonely experience. So let's talk a little bit about the real life and what that might look like. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how it can feel so overwhelming of the struggles and the pressure and what that might look like. So there's this kind of concept of, like I talked about before, of the negative self-image that has shaped so many dyslexic people, and how we have this kind of constant avalanche of like examples or experiences or comments that make us feel like being dyslexic is bad or a problem or makes us not good enough in some way. And it makes sense when you think about the number of comments that we've probably received over a lifetime. If you have been around in our kind of world in dyslexia and adults for a while, you'll know that one of the phrases that I really love to use is a study that I once came across that said, for someone who has ADHD, by the time they are 13, has received 20,000 additional criticisms to, oh, hang on one second. So someone by the time they are 13 has received 20,000 additional criticisms of the way that they work, the way that their brain is, the way that's going on. And that's by the age of 13. Well, I'm 32 now, and I can guarantee it is a lot more than 20,000 at this point. And all of these experiences build up and result in that negative self-perception that we have and the little jokes that we talk about. And then, often we know that a lot of dyslexic people kind of that negativity starts to build up, and then you just feel stuck or in this cycle of hesitation, second guessing yourself. Kind of simple decisions become like something that you just can't trust your brain in. You have no confidence in your systems, in your brain, in what's going on. I often say to people, confidence and strategies go hand in hand. Because if you can't trust your brain, how can you have confidence? If you can't believe that your strategies will work, how will you ever move forward? And that's where that procrastination can hit, because you start to believe that you will fail. You start to believe that you aren't good enough. And it's almost like you're kind of waiting for it to happen. And one of the things that I know I recently really used to struggle with is this kind of comparison trap. This feeling of like sitting across the desk and looking at someone. Mine was someone called Matt. And I just remember thinking, I'm never going to be as good as them. I'm never going to be as capable. Like, what is wrong with me? And why can't I be as good as them? Do that like them? Why can't I be as quick as them? Why can't I do their work like them? And it doesn't matter how good I was at other stuff. All I could do is fixate on the gap between them and me and kind of feeling like I was never going to be good enough. And then we can often get into this kind of fear of failing as well. And I often see people kind of not even put themselves forward for things and like not even feeling like we're capable because the constant overwhelm of past experiences just leaves you feeling like, what's the point in trying? It's just safer to stay easy. The thing that I always used to say to people, or the thing that I like to say to people is, when you're dyslexic, you need to change your kind of like approach to dyslexia as not, I can't do that, but I need to do it differently. But the thing is that your past has often taught you that you can't do something. Just like a small example, we're talking at the moment about the fact that I've been learning Spanish, and I've been learning Spanish for about 2 years. And one of the things that stopped me from learning Spanish until I got to the age of 30 was the fact that I was taken out of language classes when I was age 7. Like my school were like, she can't learn a language. It's best that she doesn't. And so I kind of internalized that feeling. And I was like, well, the last thing I want to do is put myself in a class where I'll just fail. Because I did it once at university. I thought, okay, now I've always wanted to learn Spanish. I'm going to go and try and learn Spanish. Sat in a class, couldn't learn, felt completely embarrassed and mortified by how far away I was from being able to learn, and gave up, like never tried again until I turned 30. And that fear of failing can be often, you kind of feel like it's low confidence, but it's just like, I don't want to go through this again. What's the point? It's just too hard. So we talked in quite a lot of detail about your reality and what is going on and, what you've experienced so far. And now we want to talk a little bit about how we turn that around. So we've gone from the kind of challenges and the frustrations and where that might be, but how do you take that step back and accept the challenges and the reality and the I need to do things differently, and sometimes I am slower and I'm looking across the desk and Matt is good at this and I'm good at that, and build strategies that work, but also allow yourself to see the strengths and the opportunities. Ultimately, how do we kind of accept being different and kind of take away that concept of hiding and think, okay, well, this is the stuff I'm really good at. This is the stuff I'm really capable. How do we change our mentality from, I don't want to tell people I'm dyslexic because what if they don't hire me, to why would I ever work in an organization that doesn't work for my dyslexia, because all that will end up happening is I will fail anyway. So, have I gone fast? No. So what we're kind of trying to think about and what we want to help people achieve, I always think it's worth putting a stake in the ground, like with something like confidence, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Like, what is it that is actually going to help you? And that is, what are you good at? What can you do? And what is your value? That's the stuff we want to kind of try and figure out. That's the stuff that can really help. And that's the thing that will change the conversation from your challenges to your strengths. And then one of our conversations that we love to say is that you're worth bearing with. So if you are in a situation where you're saying, okay, I need to do this, but I need a bit more explanation or a bit more detail, or I need to understand a little bit more about what's going on, how do you feel worth someone taking 30 minutes to explain it in a meeting to you? Well, you figure out what you're good at and what you can do and where your value is, so that you're worth bearing with that 30-minute meeting. So that's the pivot that we're kind of trying to talk about. We're trying to acknowledge the self-talk, the negative self-talk, the little jokes that we talked about, the limiting beliefs that we often say. Like I've heard someone say once, oh, I don't want to go for a promotion because I'll have to deal with the admin of like people's holidays and like when they can do shift work and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, but there'll be so many things you are good at. Okay, so you're not great at approving people's holidays. Like they'll remind you. And identifying what is your unique self-worth, because that is ultimately the key to becoming more confident. You have to leave that negative mentality behind and focusing on what the positive is. Okay, so thank you for bearing with my kind of 20 minutes of like a little bit of like doom and gloom. Like I said, I think it's really important to start to get a picture of what it is that you actually are doing and where is it coming from and what's going on, because only once you can identify these things, start to see the pattern of these things, start realizing, it's that I'm doing, that you can really start to create change. So let's dive in. And like I said, we've got 8 things to go through. So it's going to take me a little bit of time to kind of walk through these things and give you a full overview of them. But we have got some time for questions at the end. So make sure if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat now and I can go back to them, or you can kind of come off mute at the end as well. Either way is great. So yeah, navigating confidence. Here is our 8 practical strategies and reframes to help you build confidence. And obviously, each person is different and there's lots of different circumstances going on, and we've kind of talking to quite a wide range of people. So whichever one feels like it's valuable for you, give it a go. Not all of them will be perfect for everyone. And we got a combination of like what we find works and a script, and then some kind of more general ones. So there's a few more detailed practical options and then a kind of a few more general ones so that you can kind of use these. And we like to provide scripts because often people kind of feel inspired or excited by the idea, but we want to help people get on to implementation. Like implementation and actually driving change is the thing that really matters to us. And that's why we've provided you so many scripts this month. So understanding and communicating what works for best. So you need to figure out what works for you and finding out your way. Like understanding what it is that you need to do to feel like you can communicate clearly, that you can process information clearly. All of those things are really, really important to be able to like actually identify your strengths and figure out what you're good at. So when you're kind of able to clearly identify what you need, it makes it much, much easier to start advocating and kind of getting clear on what works and what doesn't. So one of the scripts we've got here is, I found that color coding my schedule really helps me to stay organized on top of my meetings. If we implemented the system across the company, I think it could streamline everyone's scheduling and overall organization. Again, we can kind of advocate for ourselves by saying, if I do this, it will get on this. And also reminder that successful strategies for dyslexic people help everyone. Okay, so talking confidently. Now, obviously, the whole presentation is about the fact that we're struggling with confidence. So don't worry, I know the irony of saying, just talk confidently, just don't be anxious, just, get more sleep. But here is some kind of shifts and ways of thinking that can really help start to implement this. One of the things that I often see when people are kind of talking about their dyslexia is they lead with the negatives. I need help with this because I'm struggling. I need to do this because I find it difficult. I need this support because I make this mistake. Instead, we need to lead with what will happen, what is good. I need a meeting to understand a little bit of context so that I can do this process quicker, so that I'll make less mistakes. Kind of flipping it round and leading with the benefits rather than the challenges, because people are selfish, like you and me are selfish as well. And so why should they help you? What is exciting about it to them? Also, there's nothing wrong with identifying what you've done so far to help get them on side. I've written down all of the notes you provided and I've got a clear sense of what is going on, but I could just do with 30 minutes to answer some of my questions and clarify a few points. People commit to the committed. And if you've already done lots of different things to get you to where you need, then there's nothing wrong with kind of showing your cards a little bit, like, giving people a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of what you've done to get that far. But that fear of being found out can often help us kind of feel like we've got to keep how hard we work to ourselves. Also, say what you can do. Or it might be something like, oh, I just wanted to let you know that I've done this, this, and this, and I'm feeling really confident on it. But one of the things I'm really struggling with is tone. Or one of the things I'm feeling a bit concerned about is the fact that my sentences are sometimes a little bit too kind of like all around the place. But I think I've got some great ideas. There's nothing wrong with kind of highlighting those kind of things. And often it might be one of those things where you need to put it into ChatGPT. Like, I'm worried about this, but I want to put it in a more confident way, or I want to kind of say it in a more positive way. These are a couple of things that you can kind of use as prompts and put into ChatGPT to change your language. I also think that being honest about your strengths and challenges, and like I said before, kind of seeing it as, well, I want to find the workplace that works for me, can be really, really important. It's not that you're saying what you can't do, it's just saying that there's potentially a different way around. So if you asked me to be in a job which required me to be highly organized, I would just start to crumble under that, because organization is the thing that I really struggle with. But if you said to me, do you know what, Natalie, that requires a little bit of organization and we can support you, but your ideas are going to be critical. But building relationships are the absolute key here. That's the kind of thing that I could really succeed in and do really well in. And I can get there on organization, but it shouldn't be the thing that I'm leading with. So for example, I've noticed that task X takes me slightly longer to complete compared to task Y. To ensure it gets done correctly and receives the attention it deserves, would it be possible to reassign this to Kelly or extend the deadline to me? And again, simple, confidently, not over exaggerating the challenges, because they feel like a huge challenge for us, but actually it doesn't have to always be that deep. And the other thing I'm always saying to people is, do try and think about what can you do in advance. So kind of one of the things that I'm often saying to people is try and be proactive with these kind of things. One of the things that's the most difficult, I mean, I'm an employer of 3 neurodiverse staff, so trust me, I know this challenge well, and I'm also neurodiverse myself, so I often let my team down as well, is if someone says to you in advance, do you know what, Natalie, I'm really struggling with this. I'm just really nervous that this is going to be something I find difficult. Then I can prepare for that. I can start to think about that. But what often happens is we're kind of like, yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah, it'll be fine. I'm not sure I'll figure it out. I'm sure I'll get there. And then it's only when we're in the middle of the project that we're like, oh my God, this is not going well. I'm really struggling. So being honest, particularly in advance, can be really, really helpful. So then the next one is starting to think about like acceptance, and particularly accepting compliments. So, like I said, we need to kind of take a step back and see ourselves as beyond our challenges. And one of the things that I hear over and over again, and I am talking thousands of dyslexic people at this point, so I know that this is true for you, is ignoring compliments, brushing them off, kind of like being like, oh yeah, that was just a fluke, or oh yeah, well, a wrong clock is right twice a day. All of these kind of things, or just kind of being like, oh yeah, well, anyone could have done that. All of those kind of things are kind of diminishing their value to you, not just kind of to other people as well. It's really important to start accepting your compliments and to start listening on what's going on. I know for me personally, when I first started the business, which was over 5 years ago, I really struggled with confidence. And so one of the things that people would say to me is like, oh, you're doing an amazing job with dyslexia in adults. It's such a cool business. I'm so excited. I'd be like, oh, no, it's just this little thing. Like, it's nothing important. It's just this little project. Because I couldn't accept the compliment. I couldn't believe that I was doing a good job because I lacked confidence so much. And I had to literally, like, someone would give me a compliment. I'd be like, oh, no, yeah, actually, sorry. Yes, thank you. And I would kind of get halfway down receiving, like, kind of rejecting the compliment, be like, no, no, I need to start listening to this. So I think accepting compliments is a really big thing. And the kind of compliments that I guarantee you're ignoring are things like, oh, I never would have seen it like that, or you're so good at explaining things, like everything makes sense when you say it, or like you have the best ideas, like you see things that other people don't, all of those kind of things that you're probably ignoring. Again, asking for help, not letting yourself getting to the point of extreme burnout before you ask for help. Often when I'm dealing with clients who are in cycles of consistent burnout, and I know we talked about this last week as well, we kind of talked a little bit about the importance of kind of like not letting you get too far down the ladder. And whenever I'm kind of working with clients, I always try and remind them that if you don't ask for help, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to be a bigger problem. And like I said before, asking in advance is so important. Now, I know like it's so easy said than done, but this is what I mean by sometimes it's just as simple as pointing these things out, reminding you that simple changes make a big, big difference. And so one of the things that we often really recommend is that prioritization meeting. So one of the things you could ask for on kind of asking for help is getting that prioritization piece. So when you're overwhelmed, it's actually asking for help and guidance. I have a lot on my plate right now, and I'd like your input on which is the most critical. Can we run through this together and maybe divide up the work? I'll take X and you can do Y. Again, it's not saying like I can't or I'm useless or I'm a failure, but just simply asking for prioritization. Okay. So we have 3 left. So if you do have any questions, please do make sure that you pop them in the chat or start thinking about them. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, and the jokes and the like negative criticism and comments we make with dyslexia. Now, this is actually one of my most listened to podcasts. That is how much I know that you will be resonating with this. It is so incredible how much the reflex of like negative self-talk can really like just be so ingrained in as a habit, and you don't even realize that you're doing it. So it's really important to try and remind yourself to like stop, or to catch yourself, or to like, say it again if you've said something badly. So what I used to do when I was really struggling with this, I'd be like, sorry, I didn't mean to be so harsh on myself. What actually I meant was, and just simple things like that can often kind of like start to get you in the habit of changing things. Because at the end of the day, the way that we're talking about ourselves is rooted in something, but it's also a habit that we've got really comfortable with. And the thing I always say with the negative self-talk is you are giving them the stick to beat you with. You are literally saying, I am useless at this, and I'm okay if you tell me about it. And the reason why I know this is one of my probation meetings that I had with my boss, we went in and she said to me, Natalie, I've noticed that you've been particularly disorganized in the last few months, and that, you're not getting your work done on time. And I was like, what do you mean? When? I've got all my work on time. I I think I'm pretty on top of things. She's like, well, I heard you in the office saying this and that yesterday. And I was like, yeah, no, I know. I was just a bit stressed, but like everything's on time. She's like, yeah, but the other week there was this problem with this client. And I was like, no, no. I mean, I was a bit close to the deadline, but I got in on time. She's like, well, there has been a lot of examples. And the truth is there hadn't been any examples, but I had just been saying the entire time how useless I thought I was. So perception truly is reality. And then the other thing is kind of how to think about building habits and systems, and how to kind of shift yourself out of those negative habits that we've often found ourselves in. And thinking about like, how do you build up and reinforce that sense of control and compliance? And it's simple things like when you have low confidence, you kind of let people book a meeting when they shouldn't. You kind of don't allow yourself the focus time that you probably need, or you don't ask for the prep meeting that probably would be really helpful. You just kind of allow yourself to have a bad strategy or structure. So here's the script. I wanted to let you know that I can't attend a meeting at that time. I'm currently working on time blocking my schedule to ensure I have focus time for my tasks. This helps me manage my workload effectively. I'd appreciate your understanding. And honestly, I sometimes have to do that. Someone came up to me at a conference the other day and they were like, oh, can I just pick your brains about how to start a podcast? And I was like, to be honest, I have 14 hours of meetings a week. I just don't have time to have a meeting with every single person who is looking for advice on how to build a business. And it sounds really harsh and it feels really scary in the moment, but once you kind of get used to it and you like have those systems of like, no, Mondays are my I can't do a meeting. Like I asked Katie to do a meeting this Monday and she was like, "Oh, Natalie, like I'm really sorry. Mondays is my no meetings day." Unfortunately, I did like completely disregard her and make her do a meeting on Monday, but she did tell me not to do a meeting on Monday because that's her no meetings day. So like it is easy to do even if people ignore you. Like bad bosses like me. I'm teasing. I promise I am a good boss. Um, and then finally, patience. Takes years of negative, like the changing years of negative self-talk takes time. Wow, I really just smushed my words together there. Changing years of negative self-talk really does take time. You're obviously working against your learned behaviors, your past trauma, and this like constant wish to be normal. And so the thing that I say to people is it's not about never having a moment of low confidence or never being frustrated at your dyslexia again, but how quickly can you get back to baseline? How can you kind of think about it as like, okay, so normally something, my email would go out with a typo and I would spend half an hour being frustrated at myself or embarrassed about that email. How quickly can I go back to, oh, okay, well, that wasn't the end of the world because like no one senior was on that meeting and it's not really an important word. They understood what I meant and, typos happen. How quickly can we take ourselves from like, oh my God, I'm so useless. Like, what is wrong with me? I'm such a failure. Like, why did I even take on this project? Blah, 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 blah. Back down to, okay, it's a spelling mistake. It's not the end of the world. And that's how you kind of got to think about it because it's going to take a little bit of time and, dyslexia is a pain in the ass sometimes. So you will be frustrated more times than not. Think about how you can get back to baseline quicker. Okay, I'm going to just quickly run through those again, just so you kind of get a chance to kind of think some of those through, and then we'll jump into some questions. If you want to put your hand up to ask a question, and then you can kind of come off and mute in order or put any in the chat, either one works. So figure out a way that works for you. Talk confidently. Be honest about the truth of your challenges and often say that in advance. Accept the reality of like who you are and how your brain works and accept your compliments. There's nothing wrong with asking for help, particularly on like prioritization and planning. No more negative self-talks. Little jokes about yourself is giving people the stick to beat you with. And then kind of build patterns and structure that you know works for you and hold those. And then finally, how can we get back to equilibrium as quickly as possible and patience for when we are working through these challenges? Okay. All right. Amazing. Let's see if we have any questions. Okay, Katie's got a question, and if not, if anyone wants to put their hand up or come off mute as well, that would be great. So Katie says that a question came through that said, do you have any advice on being confident in personal relationships? I often feel like I'm hiding my dyslexia and ADHD symptoms, and it can be really exhausting. How can I be more open and honest? Yeah, I absolutely agree. I also like really struggle with this, and it's something that funnily enough, the work stuff came quicker than the personal relationship stuff. And I think, again, it's a lot of the same things, but with different dynamics, is seeing what you bring to the table, seeing what your value is, seeing your challenges as not the end of the world and not catastrophizing them and making them really bad. I used to really be bad at making jokes about being late. And I remember once someone saying to me, like, oh, it's so frustrating how late you are. And I'm like, well, I've never been more than 10 minutes late. Like, it's not that bad. But it was because I'd made so many jokes, so many negative comments that like they could kind of use that term against me. So I think, it's a lot of the same advice, but just putting it in a relationship context. And at the end of the day, like there should be even more acceptance and even more kindness than there is in the workplace. Okay, amazing. Does anyone else? Oh, Samantha says, I work for a woman with ADHD, and her fast-paced mind can have me run in circles. Oh, Samantha, I'm also dealing with this with one of my one-on-one coaching clients. She's struggling. Run around in circles, and I feel really silly because I can't keep up with her speed. It's not that I'm trying to keep up with her speed. Hang on, I'm messing up my reading. I can't keep up with her speed. It's not that I'm trying to keep up with her speed because I know it's something I can't do, but because I feel like her brain is making mine all muddled and confused, and I can't focus or get on with what I'm supposed to be doing. What can I do to help myself? Samantha, it is 100% about confidently controlling the conversation. I was literally been working on this with one of my other clients, and one of the things we were saying is, okay, how do you, and yes, we do still do one-on-one coaching if you're interested. So one of the things that we were kind of talking about is like, how do you go into the conversation and like lead with, like we were saying in this piece, lead with what is going to help with, like, okay, like I want to make sure I get all of the information in, but it's better if I kind of like make sure everything makes sense before we move on to the next section. So it could be saying something like, okay, so with this like next meeting and everything that's going on, I'm going to just make sure that I ask any questions or clarify anything before you move on to a new section to make sure that I can get up and running as quickly as possible. Just control the conversation, allow it to go at your speed, but lead with why she should care. It's going to help you be quicker. It's going to help you understand better. It's going to help you identify your strengths, all of these things. And then if you can get some kind of structure and flow of the conversation as well, I think that that can be really, really helpful as well. That's the kind of thing I would really recommend. So one of the things I was saying to my client the other day is if you can kind of say like, she was like learning a new, she works in accounting, and she was kind of like trying to learn this new like monthly board pack that had to be done. And I was like, okay, try and think about the flow of what you want in that meeting, of like how you learn about that board pack. You want to know the background, you want to know the key slides, you want to know like what level of analysis you need to do, what reports need to be run, and try and think about a flow so that while the information is kind of getting thrown at you, the way you think about it is like little fish hooks. So you're getting like all of this information, and because you kind of know what you need to know in advance, you get like a hook of like, yes, that's the thing I needed to understand. Okay, that's that thing. And then the next one, oh, okay, that came behind. Yes, that's my question. Okay, I need to know that. So control the conversation and try and think of a flow in advance if you can. It's my two pieces. And when you're controlling the conversation, remind them why they should give a shit. I hope that's helpful. And then Amy says, Amy, you don't know this, but we have our employee is also called Amy M, and spelt the same way you're spelled, Amy, and it always really throws me for a loop whenever I see your messages. I'm like, Amy? No, wrong Amy. How do you deal with asking for help with planning and organization, prioritization, and it potentially leading to being micromanaged? This is a great question, Amy. Thank you. I think it's not about saying you can't. Like, you remember how I was kind of talking about not overly catastrophizing? That's the really important piece here. So we don't want to kind of say like, oh, I just feel like I'm always getting like my work late and like things aren't going well, and I'm just really embarrassed about it, and I just really feel like I need a meeting to like get an overview of everything and get that planning. Kind of we want to make really clear that we've got this. And so one of the things that I would say is something along the lines of, I would really love it in our one-to-one if we could just get a bit of an overview of the tasks I've got going on. It just really helps to keep everything fresh in my mind and clear on what I'm working on, so that it's that final safety net to make sure I don't miss anything and that I have a clear sense of what's going on. So it's like, I could do this by myself, but it's just one step better if I do it with you. So just kind of making really, really clear you can do this, but it's just better if you do it with someone else. That's how I would phrase it. And Dina says, I'm trying to start my own business. Congratulations, Dina. Welcome to the other side. I'm in a field I have a lot of knowledge in, amazing, but I find I talk down what I know. Oof. To be years of like talking down about what like how good we are in dyslexia in adults to finally be like, you know what? We are the shit. We are absolutely the shit. It's taken me 5 years. I feel like, have you ever seen that scene in Pretty Woman where the Richard Gere is in the bath and he was like, I'm very angry at my father. It's taken me 10 years of therapy. I was like, it's taken me 5 years of running the business to like admit that we're really good at our jobs. And I think for me, with confidence and this kind of thing, is I try not to see it as binary as like I'm talking up or I'm talking down the business, but it's more about pushing my boundaries every single time, pushing what I'm comfortable with every single time. So I couldn't have gone onto a call with 20 people and said, do you know what? I'm absolutely amazing. I'm so good. I'm so this. I'm so that. 5 years ago, like I would have been like, whoa, that's uncomfortable. But I just would kind of slowly but surely, every single time, push a little bit, push a little bit, push a little bit. And because it was comfortable, I would actually do it. Because that's the thing, is if you just kind of go really big, then it can lead in you kind of not creating change. So one of the things that I often kind of say to people is think of yourself as learning how to push your boundaries. And then once you've learned the skill of doing something like that, it's so easy. So going from kind of, okay, like it's really uncomfortable for me to talk confidently about the business, I'd start by saying, do you know what? I'm really proud of where we're up to, or I'm really proud of how we started. And then I might go up, then I might be like, oh, do you know what? That was really easy. And then the next time I'd say, do you know what? We're really being a disruptor in the industry. And I'm really proud of the fact that we're kind of coming in as a disruptor. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I could say I was proud and I could say I was a disruptor and the world didn't end. And then next time, you might get on a call with 20 people and tell them that you're the shit. So trying to kind of eke it out slowly and surely and kind of do it in a way that is more about learning to feel comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then you can start taking massive leaps. That would be my advice. Okay, amazing. Samantha and Amy say thank you very much for the advice, as does Dina. I'm very glad that that was helpful. Okay, I think that comes to the end of the question. So we are wrapping up the What If Dyslexia Was Easy campaign because it's the end of October for October Awareness Month. So just to let you know that on Monday, everything will be closed in the space and you won't have access to any of the recordings or any of the documents or anything that we've provided. So if there's anything that you want to make sure you've watched, anything you want to make sure you've taken a note down of, please do that in the next couple of days and make sure that gets done because this will all be closing very shortly. And if you have enjoyed working with us and enjoyed being part of this space, being part of a community, learning more about adult dyslexia, there is 3 ways that you can work with us going forward. You can either join the Hive, which this has been a taster of how we work and how we support people and the advice that we give and the value of a community. So you can either join that. There is a special offer of £150 that again ends on Monday the 4th. So you have 6 days from now that you can join. So that special offer ends, it's 50% off from tomorrow, from next Monday. And then we also have any workplace training. So if you want us to come into your workplace and to give them advice on how to manage dyslexia, give other colleagues advice on how to manage dyslexia, you can also email us and get the details of that. And then finally, we also have one-on-one coaching spots available. There is quite a limited number available. So please do make sure you get interested, involved in that. So quick recap. Monday is the end of our special offer, 50% off to join the Hive, and when all of the space closes and all of the information will be gone. You also get the opportunity to do any one-on-one coaching, or you can get us to do a workplace training if that's something you're interested in or you think your company is interested in. So thank you so much, everyone, for being involved. I'm kind of blown away by how much everyone loved this campaign and all the things we've been doing and how much it's helped people, the lovely messages received. We will also be sending a survey around, and advice and feedback is always really, really helpful. So please do fill it out, because it makes a huge difference for us to learn, grow, be better, and improve for next time. Oh, Samantha says, I love being part of these, and being during October has given me so much advice and support and understanding. Thank you. That means so much to me. Really appreciate it. Okay, all right, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. And hopefully see you in another capacity and in another space very soon. Thank you for all your time and support. Bye.